The meadow was still in the early morning light. Dew clung to the grass, and a thin mist curled above the soil. Daniel stood alone near the old wooden fence, hands in his pockets, his breath making tiny clouds in the cool air. He wasn't here for the view. He was here because of her. Lyra had left 6 months ago. She wasn't human. She was a cuddle bug, tiny, fur-covered, with bright eyes that changed color when she was happy or sad. They'd met during her first visit to Earth, when her people had landed in this very meadow. She was curious about everything human food, human games, even the sound of rain against the roof. They had become close quickly, talking for hours, sharing snacks, laughing at the smallest things. But then her mission had ended. She had to return to her homeworld, thousands of light years away. The day she left, she'd hugged him so tightly that her fur turned the deepest gold he'd ever seen. She promised she'd send messages. She did, at first short bursts of text over the slow, expensive galactic link. But then the messages came less often. Then, not at all. Now Daniel stood in the same meadow where they'd first met, wondering if he'd ever see her again. He felt distant, not just in miles, but in heart. The galaxy was too big, and he was just one person on one small planet. A low hum broke his thoughts. Daniel's eyes widened. Over the treetops, a shape glided, down round and petal-like, its silver surface catching the sunrise. He knew that shape. He had seen it the day Lyra first arrived. The ship touched down, and the ramp lowered. Tiny figures emerged, their fur rippling in the wind. They chirped and clicked in their melodic language. Daniel scanned the group. He didn't see her. His chest sank. The leader stepped forward, a cuddle bug with silver fur and a calm voice. "We returned to bring greetings to our friends," he said in perfect English. "Your world is different from the others." Daniel swallowed his disappointment, forcing a polite smile. "Welcome back." The leader tilted his head. "We know of you. Lyra spoke of you often." The words hit Daniel like a warm breeze. She did? The alien's fur shimmered faintly. "Yes, she said humans do something strange, something no other species we know does. You care for those who are far away, even when you cannot reach them. It is remarkable." Daniel didn't know what to say. His heart was suddenly heavy and light at the same time. The leader's fur shifted to a bright blue. She could not come this time, but she sent this. From a small pouch, he produced a folded scrap of fabric. Daniel unfolded it and saw a patch stitched by hand. The colors were messy, the lines uneven, but he knew what it was. It was the little meadow, with a tiny figure and a tiny cuddle bug standing side by side. "She made this?" he whispered. The leader nodded. "On our world, we make these 4. Those we wish to see again." Daniel's eyes burned. He ran his thumb over the rough stitches, imagining her small hands working on it under alien skies. The leader spoke again. "We cannot promise when she will return, but she will. She said you must know. You are part of her story now." Daniel smiled faintly. "And she's part of mine." The other cuddle bugs chirped happily as they explored the meadow. Daniel stayed near the leader, watching them run their small paws over the grass, their eyes wide at the sight of Earth's flowers. One of them tugged at his sleeve and pointed to the patch. "You will wait?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, I'll wait." Hours passed before the visitors prepared to leave. The leader paused at the ramp. "You're kind. You surprise us," he said. "In the galaxy, strength is measured by weapons or fleets. But your strength is in holding on to others. That is why we will tell everyone of what we find here." Daniel looked out across the meadow, remembering the first time he'd seen Lyra's golden fur glow under the sun. He didn't know how long it would be until she came back. But he knew now that distance didn't erase what they had. It only made him hold it tighter. As the ship rose into the morning sky, Daniel whispered into the wind, "See you soon, Lyra." And somewhere, light years away, he hoped she could feel it. Cuddle bugs make first contact and humanity stuns the galaxy. Asterisk. The cuddle bugs left. He sat on the edge of his bed, turning the small stitched patch over and over in his hands. He could still smell a faint sweetness clinging to it, something like honey mixed with rain. He imagined Lyra holding it close as she worked, her little claws hooking the thread, her fur glowing in concentration. He missed her more now than he had yesterday. Before, he only had memories. Now he had something new from her, and it made the distance feel both smaller and bigger. The next morning, Daniel decided to visit the town library. It was one of the only places in town that still had an old galactic comlink. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't reliable, but maybe it could carry a message across the stars. The librarian, Mrs. Whitaker, was a kind old woman who had been there the day the cuddle bugs first landed. She remembered Daniel and Lyra well. "Trying to send her a note, are you?" she asked, smiling gently. Daniel nodded. "I don't know if she'd get it. I have to try." Mrs. Whitaker led him to the dusty machine in the corner. It looked like an old radio with a hologram panel that flickered when it warmed up. Daniel sat down, his fingers hovering over the keys. What could he even say? "Hi, I miss you?" That sounded too small for everything he felt. He started typing slowly. "Lyra, I got your patch. Thank you. I keep it with me now. I wish you were here to see the meadow again. I hope you're safe. I hope you're happy. I'll wait to see you again. Your friend Daniel." He read it over 3 times, then sent it. The little screen flashed transmission pending, sending, sent. Whether it reached her or not, he didn't know. But for the first time in months, he felt like he had reached out. A week passed. No reply came. Daniel tried to distract himself with work at the repair shop, fixing tractors and old drones. The stitched patch stayed in his pocket, and sometimes he caught himself pressing it between his fingers like a talisman. One gray afternoon, as rain drizzled over the streets, he heard a chime from his pocket. He pulled out the small galactic communicator the Cuddlebug leader had given him last year, an old second-hand model. The screen blinked with a message. His hands shook as he opened it. "Daniel, I got your message. I didn't think the link still worked. The meadow is in my dreams every night. I am safe. I am happy, but not as happy as when I was there. We are preparing for another journey. I do not know if I can come yet, but I carry you with me." Daniel read it 3 times, smiling so hard his cheeks hurt. The words were simple, but they felt like the sun breaking through heavy clouds. The days after that felt lighter. Daniel started writing short messages to Lyra whenever he could, even if he didn't know when she'd read them. He told her about the changing seasons, about the new honey his neighbor's bees made, about the town's autumn festival. In return, she sent brief but vivid stories about glowing rivers on her planet, about festivals of light, about how her people planted new seeds gifted by humans. Each message was like a bridge across the emptiness between them. One night, Daniel stood in the meadow again. The stars were bright, and he wondered which one was hers. He held the patch tightly and closed his eyes. He remembered something the Cuddlebug leader had said before leaving. "Your strength is in holding on to others." Maybe that was true. Maybe humans were stubborn in a way that mattered, not just in battles, but in caring. The galaxy measured power in fleets and empires. But maybe real power was refusing to let go of someone, even when the universe tried to scatter you apart. 2 months later, another message arrived. This one was longer. "Daniel, I have asked my leader for permission to return. It is not certain yet, but I told them about the patch and your messages and how humans do not forget. They say that is rare. They are thinking about it. If I can come, I will stand in the meadow again." Daniel's heart thumped in his chest. He pictured her standing there, fur glowing gold again, chirping that bright laugh of hers. He didn't know if it would happen, but the thought filled him with energy, like the first warm day after winter. Weeks passed without a clear answer from her, but something had changed in Daniel. He no longer felt powerless. Even if she couldn't return yet, they had found a way to stay connected. The distance still hurt, but it was no longer a void. It was just space that a message, a memory, or a stitch of thread could cross. And deep down, he believed the day would come when she would step down that ramp again. One evening, Daniel sat in the meadow with Mrs. Whitaker, who had brought a blanket and hot tea. They watched the sun set, painting the grass gold. She glanced at him. "You seem more at peace lately." Daniel smiled faintly. "I think I figured something out. Distance isn't the same as losing someone. You can still hold on." Mrs. Whitaker nodded. "That's a very human thing to do." Daniel chuckled softly. "Yeah, guess we humans are stubborn like that." A few days later, he sent one more message to Lyra before bed. "Even if you can't come yet, I'll be here. The meadow will be here. I'll keep waiting. And when you do come, I'll make sure. The flowers are blooming." He didn't expect an answer right away, but before he fell asleep, the communicator buzzed. "Then I will come when the meadow is gold." That is a promise. Daniel lay back, staring at the dark ceiling, smiling. Somewhere far away, she had said the words he needed most. And he knew whether it took months or years, he would see her again. Because that was what humans did. This time, when Daniel dreamed, he didn't see the meadow empty. The winter winds had begun to creep into the little town. Frost painted the edges of windows, and Daniel's breath puffed in clouds as he walked through the quiet streets. The meadow lay frozen now, its grass bowed under a silver layer of frost. Daniel stood there for a moment, staring at it. This was where everything had started, where Lyra had laughed under the sun, where she had promised to return. The memory warmed him. Even as the air bit at his face, it had been a month since her last message. He told himself not to worry. The galactic network was slow, and her people were always traveling. Still, the silence felt heavy. He had gotten used to her little stories about alien festivals, rivers glowing at night, and strange fruits that tasted like cinnamon and mint now. Without them, he felt like a room without light. One afternoon, Daniel sat in the kitchen, peeling potatoes for dinner, when his communicator buzzed. He almost dropped the knife. The screen lit up with her name. "Lyra. Daniel. I am in a safe place with good signal. I can talk for a little while." Daniel's fingers flew over the keys. "It's so good to hear from you. How are you?" Her reply came quickly. "Cold. Not as cold as your winter, but my fur is not so thick. We are in the northern part of our world now. My leader says we may go back to Earth soon for a short visit." Daniel grinned, his heart thudding. "If you come, I'll make you soup. Remember the soup you liked? With the bread?" "Yes, the one with carrots and potatoes. It made my fur turn pink. My people still talk about that meal. They have never had food that makes them feel warm inside." Daniel laughed softly, warm inside. That was exactly what her nectar drink had done for him, the one she had shared under the shade of the ship. He typed back, "If you come, we'll share that meal again. I'll make it extra warm for you." Over the next few weeks, their messages became more frequent, sometimes short, sometimes long. She would send pictures blurry, but full of life, of her people sitting around glowing campfires, of children chasing each other through forests of crystal leaves, of the strange flower seeds Earth had given them blooming in alien soil. Daniel sent her pictures 2 snowy rooftops, his repaired tractor, Mrs. Whitaker's cat sleeping beside the old library stove. It wasn't the same as having her there, but it was something. And sometimes that something felt like enough to carry him through the days. One evening, Lyra sent a message that made Daniel pause. "Daniel, my leader asks about humans. I tell him you care about people, even when they are far. He says this is unusual in the galaxy. Why do humans do this?" Daniel sat with the question for a while, sipping tea. Why did humans do this? Why did he keep holding on to someone so far away? He finally wrote, "Because people matter, no matter where they are. If you care about someone, you don't stop just because it's hard to see them. Distance is just space, but friendship is closer than space." There was a pause before her reply came. "That is very human and very strong." Days later, Daniel was called to the library. Mrs. Whitaker was waiting with an odd look on her face. "Daniel," she said, "there's a package for you." And it didn't come from Earth. His heart jumped. She handed him a small box wrapped in soft plant fibers. Inside was a container made of something that looked like glass but felt like silk. He opened it carefully. Inside were 3 tiny glowing fruits, pulsing gently like they were alive. A note was tucked beside them. "These are called hearth fruits. We eat them together during our winter festival. If we cannot share soup this year, I want you to share these with your people. Eat them with someone you care about. Lyra Daniels." Chest tightened. He could almost see her hands packing them, almost hear her chirping laughter. That evening, Daniel invited Mrs. Whitaker and his neighbor, old Mr. Harris, to his kitchen. He told them about the hearth fruits and how they were meant to be eaten together. The 3 of them sliced the glowing fruit carefully. It tasted like sunlight and honey, like summer mornings and soft blankets. As they ate, the room seemed warmer, and even Mr. Harris's gruff face softened into a smile. For a moment, Daniel didn't feel the distance at all. It was as if Lyra was there at the table with them, her fur glowing gold in the LAMPLIGHT. Later that night, Daniel sent her a message. "We ate the hearth fruits together. They were wonderful, thank you. You were here with us in spirit." Her reply came quickly. "Then my heart is warm. One day I will be there in truth. As winter dragged on, Daniel realized something. When the Cuddle bugs first arrived, the galaxy thought of humans as small, unimportant one of many young species on a backwater world. But Lyra and her people had seen something different. They had seen a strength that wasn't in weapons or technology. It was in a bowl of soup. It was in a stitched patch. It was in holding on to someone across the stars. Daniel didn't know when Lyra would come back. But now he understood something important. She would come back. Because the bond between them was the kind of thing that survived distance, silence, and even time. And maybe that was what truly stunned the galaxy. That night, as he looked out at the frost-covered meadow, Daniel smiled. He could almost hear the hum of a petal-shaped ship, almost see her small figure stepping down the ramp. And when that day came, he'd be ready with soup on the stove and the patch in his pocket. Snow had begun to melt, and the meadow was waking up again. Patches of green peeked through the white, and tiny buds pushed out from the branches. Daniel stood at the fence, watching the change. Spring always brought new life, but this year he felt more restless than usual. It had been almost 3 months since Lyra's last gift, the glowing hearth fruits. They had warmed the coldest winter days. But now, without her voice in his communicator, the silence was back. Daniel still sent her messages every week. He didn't know when she would read them. He just hoped she did. One morning, Mrs. Whitaker rushed into his workshop, clutching her old tablet. "Daniel," she said breathlessly, "you'd better see this." On the screen was a galactic news broadcast rare for their little town. The anchor's voice spoke in calm tones. Translated into English, The Cuddlebug delegation has presented a case before the Galactic Council. Using Earth as their example, Daniel leaned closer. The screen showed images of Lyra's people, holding up pictures of humans sharing food, helping one another, laughing together. And there Daniel froze was a photo of him in his kitchen, serving soup to Mrs. Whitaker, and Mr. Harris. Mrs. Whitaker gasped. "That's you." The broadcast continued. The delegation claims that humans possess a rare strength, the ability to maintain deep emotional connections over great distances. They argue this quality could reshape interspecies diplomacy. Daniel couldn't believe it. He had thought their friendship was just theirs, personal, but Lyra had taken it to the center of the galaxy. Later that evening, Daniel sent her a message. "Lyra, I saw the news. You showed them us?" Her reply came sooner than he expected. "Yes, Daniel. I told them about the soup, the patch, the messages. I told them that humans keep people in their hearts, no matter how far away they are. They were surprised." "Why surprised?" He typed. "Because most species stop trying when distance makes things hard. But you don't. You find ways to stay close. We want others to learn this from you." Daniel sat with those words for a long time. He didn't think of himself as special. He was just a man missing his friend. But maybe that was the point. Weeks later, the galaxy answered. A small ship arrived, not a Cuddlebug vessel this time, but a smooth, shining craft from a different world. Out stepped two tall, bird-like aliens, their feathers shimmering under the sunlight. They approached Daniel cautiously. "We have come," one said in careful English, "to see what it is you humans do." Daniel blinked. "What we do?" "Yes," the alien said. "You're holding on. Your Cuddlebug friends say it is. Powerful. We wish to understand." Daniel wasn't sure how to explain it. But then he thought of Lyra. "Well," he said slowly, "it starts simple. You care. You don't stop, even when someone's far away. You keep sending messages, sharing things. You let them know they're still part of your life." The bird-like aliens tilted their heads, considering. "You mean you make them present, even when absent?" Daniel smiled. "Exactly." The visitors stayed for a few days. Daniel showed them the meadow, told them the story of the first landing, cooked them soup, and let them hold Lyra's stitched patch. They listened closely, asking questions about why humans put so much feeling into these small acts. When they left, one of them said, "Your way. It is not the way of our people, but perhaps it should be." A few days later, Daniel received another message from Lyra. "The bird people told us about their visit. They said you showed them the meadow and the patch. They are curious now. This is working, Daniel. The council is talking about making your way a teaching for others." Daniel read it twice, a slow smile spreading on his face. "It's not my way, Lyra. It's just what friends do." The days warmed, and spring flowers began to bloom in the meadow. Daniel planted a small patch of bright yellow blossoms right near the fence. They would be in full bloom by summer. The time Lyra had promised she would try to return. Still, he didn't count the days. He had learned something in these long months. Hope wasn't about staring at the calendar. Hope was about living so that when the moment came, you were ready to meet it. One quiet evening, Daniel stood in the meadow as the sun dipped low. The air smelled of grass and earth. In the distance, he heard the faint hum of an engine, not from a car. The meadow was alive with color that summer. Yellow blossoms swayed in the warm wind, bees hummed lazily in the air, and the grass had grown thick and soft underfoot. Daniel stood at the fence, watching the scene in front of him with quiet wonder. 3 different alien ships rested side by side, their ramps down. Beings from 3 worlds, Cuddlebugs, bird-like aliens, and the tall, scaled people moved through the flowers, exploring, laughing, talking. It had been a week since Lyra returned, and Daniel still caught himself wondering if it was a dream. After so many months of messages, silence, and waiting, she was here real, warm, and smiling. She'd been introducing him to her friends from other planets, telling them about the human way of staying close even across the stars. But he knew she couldn't stay forever. The thought sat in his chest like a small, quiet ache. One afternoon, Lyra found him repairing a broken wooden bench near the edge of the meadow. She padded over and sat beside him. "You are quiet today," she said. Her fur glowed a soft, curious blue. Daniel tightened a bolt on the bench. "Just thinking. You'll be leaving again soon." She was silent for a moment. "Yes, but not for long this time. Our journeys will bring us back here often now." Daniel smiled faintly. "I'll hold you to that." Lyra tilted her head. "I want to give you something before we go. But I also want you to give me something." He looked at her. "A trade?" Her fur shimmered gold. "Yes, a gift exchange. That is how we make important promises on my world." The next morning, the whole group gathered in the meadow. Lyra stepped forward with a small bundle wrapped in soft plant fibers. She placed it in Daniel's hands. He unwrapped it carefully and found a tiny crystal globe. Inside, a single golden flower bloomed, its petals slowly turning as though it were alive. "This is a sunbloom," Lyra explained. "It grows only in one valley on my world. It never closes. Even in darkness, it glows. I want you to keep it so that, no matter how far I am, you can see a piece of my home." Daniel's throat tightened. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Lyra." Now it was his turn. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small folded cloth. As he opened it, the aliens leaned closer. It was a tiny cloak made of soft, warm fabric. The inside was lined with light wool, and the outside was stitched with small patterns, flowers, stars, and a ship with petals like the Cuddle bug's vessel. "I made it for you," Daniel said. "Your fur isn't very thick, and you said the cold gets to you. This will keep you warm on your journeys." Lyra took the cloak in her small hands and ran her claws over the stitching. Her fur turned the deep gold of joy. This is perfect. I will wear it always." The other aliens began murmuring in their own languages. The bird-like ambassador stepped forward. "You humans, you give things that are not just useful, but filled with feeling. The object becomes more than itself." Daniel shrugged, a little embarrassed. "It's just how we do things. A gift is a piece of you. That way, the person always carries you with them." The scaled alien nodded slowly. "We will take this teaching home. Perhaps it will help our people understand connection better." That evening, they all shared a meal in the meadow. It was a mix of foods: earth bread and soup, nectar from the Cuddle bugs, spiced grains from the bird people, and a fruit drink from the scaled aliens that fizzed like tiny stars on the tongue dot. As the sun dipped behind the hills, Lyra leaned against Daniel's side. "Do you see? This is what you humans have done. You make strangers sit together as friends. My people have traveled far, but we have never seen it happen so easily." Daniel looked around the table. Different voices mingled in the air. Laughter carried on the warm breeze. "I guess it's just what happens when you care." The next day, the ships prepared to leave. Daniel walked with Lyra to the ramp of her petal-shaped vessel. She wore the little cloak he had made for her, its edge brushing the grass as she moved. She turned to him. "When I return, I will bring something new to share, something no one here has tasted before. We will keep exchanging gifts until we have pieces of each other's worlds." Daniel smiled. "It's a deal." She hugged him tightly, her fur glowing gold. "Then we are bound by the exchange. This is more than friendship now. It is a promise." Between worlds. When the ships lifted into the sky, Daniel stood in the meadow until they were only specks of light. He held the crystal sunbloom in his hand, watching it glow softly against the evening. He didn't feel the same kind of ache as before. Yes, she was gone again, but this time he knew she would be back. And between them now were gifts, messages, and memories strong enough to cross any distance. A few weeks later, Mrs. Whitaker brought news from the Galactic Network. The Council was discussing something new, a proposal from the Cuddle bugs and their allies for an exchange pact between species. The idea was simple. Whenever two worlds made contact, they would trade something personal, something made with care, to remind them of their bond. Daniel grinned. He could picture Lyra explaining the idea, wearing the little cloak, holding up the sun-bloom dot, and somewhere out there, she was telling the galaxy what she had told him. A gift is a piece of you. That way, the person always carries you with them. That night, Daniel set the sunbloom on his windowsill. Its golden glow filled the room, soft and steady, like a star that refused to fade, and he thought maybe this is how humanity changes the galaxy. Not with force, not with power, but with something small, warm, and impossible to forget. Autumn came quietly. The meadow's flowers faded, the grass turned gold, and the air carried the crisp scent of falling leaves. Daniel spent more time indoors now, sitting by the fire and watching the sun bloom. Lyra had given him Dot. It had been 2 months since she left. At first, messages came often short notes from her ship, sometimes a small picture of a new world they visited. But then the messages grew fewer, and now, nothing for 3 weeks. He told himself it was probably because she was busy or far away where signals couldn't reach. But deep inside, the old ache had returned. The distance between them felt wider than space itself. One cold morning, Daniel sat at the table with a cup of tea, staring at the communicator. No new messages. The silence was heavy. Mrs. Whitaker stopped by with fresh bread. She noticed his quiet mood and said, "Missing your friend?" Daniel nodded. "It's strange. We spent so much time together when she was here. Now it's like she's slipping away again." Mrs. Whitaker poured herself some tea. People change when they're far away. But that doesn't mean they forget you. Sometimes they just don't know how to come back. Daniel thought about that. "I don't know how to reach her without sounding desperate." Mrs. Whitaker smiled gently. "Then don't just reach with words. Reach with something only a human would send." That night, Daniel sat down with paper and pen. He decided to write Lyra a letter, something real, something she could hold in her hands, not just read on a screen. He wrote about the changing seasons, about the smell of the first wood fire in the chimney, about the way the meadow looked now, under the autumn moon. He told her how the bench they fixed together was still standing strong, and how the sunbloom's light reminded him of her laughter. But he also wrote about his feelings. He told her he missed her, that the silence felt heavy, and that he hoped their gift exchange was not just a memory, but the beginning of something lasting. At the bottom, he drew a tiny sketch of the meadow with 2 figures, one human, one with fur, standing side by side. When he was done, he folded the letter carefully and tucked in a small, pressed maple leaf from the meadow, deep red like fire. Sending something across the galaxy was not simple. He had to take the letter to the new exchange hub that the Council had set up in the nearby town. The hub was busy humans and aliens trading items, foods, and messages under one roof. The clerk, a tall bird-like alien, took Daniel's package and inspected it. "This will take weeks to reach the Cuddle Bug's traveling fleet," the clerk sighed. "That's all right," Daniel replied. "It's worth the wait." Weeks passed. The days grew shorter, and frost began to form on the windows. Daniel's life went on helping neighbors, tending the garden, fixing things around the house, but the waiting was always there in the back of his mind. Then one evening, as snowflakes drifted outside, the communicator on his table lit up. Message was not just a screen of words. It was a live video. Lyra's face appeared, framed by the soft petals of her ship's interior. Her fur was glowing gold and silver, at once a color Daniel had never seen before. "I got your letter," she said, holding it up for him to see. The maple leaf was tucked carefully into the cloak he had made her. "I read it many times. The others in my crew, they read it too. They said it made them feel like they were walking through your meadow themselves." Daniel felt a warmth spread through him. "I wasn't sure it would even reach you." "It did, and it reminded me of something. We have many ways of sending words, but humans. You send feelings. You put pieces of your world into your messages." Lyra looked down for a moment, then back at him. "I'm sorry for the silence. We were traveling far from any signal. But even when I could not send a message, I thought of the bench, and the bread, and your fire in winter. Your letter made me feel close again." Daniel smiled. "I guess that's what I hoped it would do." Then Lyra leaned closer to the camera. "Daniel, I have a request. When we return, my people wish to build something here, a permanent home for visitors from our world. They want you to help design it.